Welcome to episode 3 of the Fungi Monkey Podcast, and I'm here today with Wayne Tarquin Smith, who you may know as Winston Tarquin Smith on the online, or he's been upgraded to Sir Winston Tarquin Smith alongside Tony Blair. You know, in the recent honours, the Queen wrote him a special letter saying, for all of your calling people wank-puffins during the pandemic,
Absolutely.
there's no doubt that you need to be honoured, sir. You need some form of honour. We need to make sure that you are seen as the pillar of society that you truly are.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you very much, Johnny.
Wayne, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Newport. Well, originally Cwmbran. I've always lived in South Wales.
Oh, God, I didn't know. I wouldn't let you in if I knew you were from Cwmbran.
Cwmbran, yes. Well, I wasn't born there. I was born in Newport, though. Most of my life in Cwmbran. And I've been doing the same job since I was 16 years old. And
prostitution.
Well, that's my side job. Since I was 16, I'm 50 now. I just turned 50 in November. I've made pallets and packing cases.
Oh, God. Wow.
I did a kind of a small apprenticeship to be a carpenter, but I didn't finish it because the guy who was teaching me carpentry was a guy who worked for my dad. And every time my dad went out, this guy was really horrible to me. And every time my dad comes back, he was really nice. So one day he was really horrible to me, and in very much a Benny Hill style, I grabbed the claw hammer and I chased him around the workshop. He ran really quick. Luckily for him, and that was kind of the end of my apprenticeship. But yeah, I've made pallets and pack cases, and I make garden furniture out of recycled wood, and I'm very much on the green side. I don't like to waste anything.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How long do you think before? And this is just something that pops into my head. I know a fair few people around in Wales in general who are involved in the wood industry in general and that stuff like that. I know there's a big recycling plant up near Talabont Brecon Way. That's owned by the uncle of a friend of mine who's lives up in Brecon Way, and it's like there's a lot of wood to be had in the area.
Yeah.
How long do you think, with the agenda the way it's going, do you think we're going to end up with some weird type of graphite pallets taking over, or some sort of like weird new invention that takes away the wood industry?
Well, I had an idea about 15 years ago. I approached Monmouthshire County Council about it, because at the time because I lived in Chepstow for about 15 years, they were recycling all the plastic bottles, but they didn't, but the plastic that they couldn't recycle was going straight into landfill. So I came up with an idea that all this plastic could be made into a plastic pallet. Could be compressed down, melted, and melted into a plastic pallet, because it's an end of a waste product. Instead of putting it in the ground, you're not chopping trees down anymore to get the wood. You got this plastic pallet, and if it breaks, you chip it up and you make another plastic pallet. So it could be one of those ongoing things. Unfortunately, it would cost too much money. That was all. That was a simple answer.
Really, it would cost too much money to pioneer something that could be, because I would see that I would see it's very obvious as something that would be targeted for funding. But when you actually dig away at these things, the actual neato ideas that are individuals' ideas don't tend to be picked up by these people.
It was picked up. A similar idea was picked up. There's a guy in Mid Wales. He takes all the plastic that should go to landfill, like I was planning, and he makes plastic fence panels out of them, fence posts that are made out of this recycled plastic. So again, less wood being chopped down, and I think you don't have to paint it, do you?
Yeah.
Who likes painting fences? Nobody.
I'm not sure.
And it was
maybe me. I don't know. I was having a good time painting them.
I've been painting today, actually. I've been
no. I wouldn't like to.
I've been painting today because at the moment, as we spoke about before, I bought myself a canal boat to live on, but it's a bit of a mess. It's called the Wank-Puffin. Well, it's nicknamed the Wank-Puffin for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. So, for people who don't know what a wank-puffin is, let us define it here. Please use the language that you feel appropriate for such a task.
Well, it's kind of an army term originally. for something, or someone that was a bit of a twat.
Yeah.
So I've kind of used it to anyone who thinks that getting a jab will get their freedoms back.
Yeah.
So if you call them a cunt, Twitter will ban you for using that 4-letter word. I've never been banned once for using the word wank-puffin, but I've annoyed so many people. And that's as long as I annoy them and get a rise out of them.
Now just skipping over the rising, which I
Sure.
completely agree with, because to be perfectly honest, is like it entered into a world of absurdity where everything you say
Absolutely.
enters into a vacuum, and there's nothing you can say that will actually change their mind, apart from saying something that will make them think for just a little bit. And it's a brilliant term, and partially the reason I think it's such a brilliant term is the word wank is just such a beautiful word.
Where would we be without it?
Yeah, where would we be? But I mean, there's a whole world out there who doesn't understand the world of wank. You know, that beautiful word that describes almost everything that is wank, and it's such like has that onomatopoeic. Is that the
That's a great word, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's hard to fit into a conversation, but I get it.
That sort of like the tone. It makes you feel or see what it is.
Yes.
It sounds like what it is. You know, it's got that nice beginning sound and that like K at the end, which obviously relates to the feeling of the word fuck as well.
Yeah.
And so and of course the puffin is such they don't seem like they've got much of an intelligence for a bird.
No, they're quite busybodies.
Yeah.
They kind of live in the ground, and that's kind of a metaphor for the people who say to us, we're crazy for not wearing a mask, or we're crazy for not getting the vaccine.
I think wank is under the radar, especially in America. The word wank you can get away with so much more than you can most things, and a lot of people, when you use it right, people over in the States and places love it, because they you know, it's only a matter of time before wank enters their dialect properly, like the American.
But will they use it the same way as us?
I think they will eventually. I think it will start off by the thing that we're expecting, which is them using the word the wanker.
Exactly.
To describe people, he's a wanker. Which, of course, wank, to anybody who really doesn't know, wank is masturbation, really. To have a wank is what I think. Have a quick, you say a quick crafty wank. You know,
Tommy Tank.
A Tommy Tank, yeah. But I don't know where it come from. I did meet a German man when I worked in the Hilton when I was like 19, 20 years old, and I met a German man who was called Mr. Wankel. And I met some Mr. Spanky.
Really? Mr. Spanky?
Yeah.
I'd love that. I mean, I changed my name. I would consider Wayne Spanky. What do you think?
So, yeah. So tell people why you changed your name. You were trying to escape your links to Epstein?
Well, yeah, exactly. I was at a festival, and I was with a load of friends.
And Ghislaine Maxwell popped by.
Yeah. And this hippie guy that was clearly on large amounts of psychedelics came up to me, and as if he knew me, and called me Tarquin. He was like, "Hey, Tarquin," and all my mates started giggling. So I thought, I'm going to play along a little bit. And I was like, "Hi, mate, how you doing?" And having a good chat with him. It was like we were all friends. And of course, that Tarquin stayed with me. And then one Sunday night, under the influence of probably large amounts of marijuana, possibly, I can't be sure, I decided to change my name via deed poll to Wayne Tarquin Smith for 17 quid.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
It's a beautiful story, isn't it?
And I've always loved the name Tarquin. And I think there's probably a few heroes in history called Tarquin.
There's some anti-heroes as well.
Oh, that's even more interesting. Is
Tarquinius.
It an anti-hero name? The Tarquin is the anti-hero.
Well, Tarquinius was some sort of Roman bastard.
Is that what you think you see yourself as in your way you interact with culture generally? Do you see yourself as a little bit of an anti-hero to a majority that quantifies the wrong things? If you get what I mean.
I guess so. I use a hashtag CGAF, and it's couldn't give a fuck. Because whatever we do, first of all, no argument was ever won on Twitter.
Yeah.
Simple. Or on social media.
No, I win every argument.
You do, but there's never a satisfactory conclusion.
Yeah.
I end up calling them a wank-puffin and fucking blocking them. I don't know. I think we've got...
no argument has ever been won.
No, and it hasn't. But so I use the CJF hashtag mainly because it's not that I don't care. I don't let it bother me. I don't let it internalise me. You see, so many people are so stressed out at these times. I've been awake a long time. So I've been reading about Agenda 21 and the Great Reset. Well, not so much the Great Reset. That's kind of a new thing. But, all these...
I mean, it's a new thing is in the fact that they've rebranded.
They changed the name. It's the same shit.
World Order
absolutely.
Business of to starting again afresh with these new people in control who are going to... I was
Council of Foreign Relations, when you go down that one, that's a rabbit hole and a half, that one.
Well, it's a very good example, and when you trace it back, one thing I really enjoyed is like load of freedom of information requests. I don't know when they're from. I think they're from a fair few years ago, a couple of decades ago, where you've got J. Edgar Hoover sitting in his office, obviously, and he's having to trawl through these people who are writing to be like, have you heard about the CFR, this Council on Foreign Relations? It's like in the 40s or something. My God, they're going to take over the world. Do something about it. And he, of course, they're probably not responding to any of these because they're like,
a cigar going, I know.
We know exactly who they are. And I mean, people, I think it's taking a long time. It's still in a process of people waking up to realise that the organisations and institutions they think run the countries are actually just the front. And the people who are involved in that, they don't really know they're even the front a lot of the time. The politicians, the big guys, know they're not in control. They know that they go through a system which it then goes up and there's a couple of people up top who make the main decisions, etc. But a lot of this stuff and from my own research, seems to be trusts, institutions, foundations, these sort of things that are all what would be described as roundtable groups. And when people say roundtable groups, they're often referring it to the term that or the ideology of Cecil Rhodes, going back a bit, and that was basically it was based then on Adam Weishaupt, which was the Illuminati idea.
Yes, of course,
The pyramid, instead you view it from above, and the middle round table is the one that's got the most power, so other people would describe that as the top. But then there's lots of different round table groups on each side of these that then get dictated on how to... really, they're the creators of standard operating procedures within society, I think is the best way to describe it. And so these round table groups, when you get down to a certain level, it's no longer individuals in a little group that are deciding things. The whole idea of this is that each layer doesn't really know who's behind the other layer, or etc. So
absolutely,
it's the onion sort of thing. But of course, when you get down to CFR, I think that's the first level of the real visible round table groups that are...
They're the ones that
politically linked, really heavily politically linked and linked to big business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when people ask about this, I'm going to call it a scamdemic. It's not a pandemic. It's a scamdemic. But when people ask about it, they say, well, how can every country be involved, with it? Well, every country is involved with it. It is a massive network. 84 countries signed up to this. And so but trying to convince them that, the world isn't as big as you think it is. It's actually a smaller number of people.
I'm writing something right now which I unfortunately can't go into because I'd love to, because it's so relevant to this. But I have given the basic premise of what it is, and it's basically I found a network linked of 5 people who, if you took out of the coronavirus pandemic and the control structure around it, none of it would have happened globally. The entire thing.
Without just 5 people.
Just 5. If you've got 5 people and you take them out and the whole thing falls apart and stops working, I mean these people are the ones who are controlling all the other people as well. They are. It's traceable and it's provable. So if you've got...
but who's controlling them?
that. I already know too.
Oh well, you know,
that will come
I've got
out,
my,
and the
I've got my,
article will-
I've got my ideas about that
Yeah,
too.
yeah. It's. I think what we can get round to, and what I can say about this is that it does seem to be lots of roundtable groups and institutions and other things and trusts that like to that are the link between the actual political power and getting things done. While being able to cover it up afterwards. So they've got a network that works to do this.
Again, the occult, hidden, veiled,
and it's thinly veiled when you get up to the roundtable group. So where I am at the moment is I'm looking at a trust which is probably the same level in overall power and influence as the CFR, and so would probably relate in that. But people
is this an evolution of the CFR?
No, this is from long before the CFR.
Okay.
So this is possibly even a little bit above, but the people who are above them will be above the CFR too. And when you see their members, you go, oh my God, of course. And when you think about the whole idea, and then you go back to the idea of what the original roundtable groups were set up to be, which was this link of hidden power that were basically the
Spectre.
use institutions that
like the James Bond
sound like national institutions, sound like things that are backed by some form of establishment. It sounds like just a body over here or a group over here that you wouldn't be suspicious of. That's exactly where they work in, and you can trace it. But this is a situation where they've really exposed themselves, and I think it's the first time that people are going to be able to be probably. It's the first time they're going to. Normal people can be able to accept that there's people behind the control.
Yeah, well, the further they go on with their plan, the less they'll be likely to. They don't care. They won't care anymore. If the veil drops, so what? We're so far on that we're not going to be stopped.
Fallacy,
I think maybe that'll be their downfall. The fact that they think they can't be stopped. So I do, and spiritually, we talked slightly earlier about spiritual wise. It's love or fear, isn't it? It's really, that's what it boils down to. It's love and fear. If we see everyone with love, their fear mongering will never work.
I've been describing myself recently, and it's probably the best way is being a context hound. When I go into this is why I go through family histories. This is why I go from the past and go all the way through, so I can understand the context of someone and to the time and to the culture and how they were brought up and what everything that was going on and all the friends and the influences all around. And I like to have that understanding of what it seems to me to be the people at the top of this chain, the people, or at least the ones that we see who are the front men for the top, so the top level front men, the ones who have the hardest job at the moment, people like Anthony Fauci have the hardest time getting away with their shit now. All the evidence is coming out.
Yes.
It's really, I mean, they will already look bad, and all they can do is stand there and say, "Oh, you're picking on me." It's that's the last bastion of no argument whatsoever.
Well, it's almost like the last act in many ways as well, isn't it?
Now these guys aren't the top level by far. They're not. I lost my train of thought just even thinking about Anthony Fauci. But they're not the top level. These guys, what people have to realize, are the front guys. And these guys, when I research them, seem to have this point. And women, Ghislaine Maxwell's a good point of this. Where they're so fractured that they haven't the ability to have the correct emotional response or the normal emotional range, not response, range that everybody would expect in life. Now, I've worked with
empathy and no compassion.
I've worked with people who are really heavily autistic, so I was talking to people who are right on the far end of the spectrum. Some of the, as you could tell stories about the people the people I worked with. One guy, he could put his hand entirely up his arse to grab his poo and bring it out and use it as a weapon against you, and I really mean it's a sight to watch.
Like a shit ninja.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a special.
That is,
tell you what,
that is special.
complicated kid. All you can feel is that they completely, of course, this kid was completely disconnected. He doesn't know what he's doing in the same frame of culture, and same with a reference of culture and what he should and shouldn't do. So if he's not getting his way, and something triggers him, his mind flips and he resorts to that. Now,
Wow,
this
that's
guy,
extreme though, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. But
how did he even come up with that?
what's the difference between someone who's on that range of spectrum and someone like Fauci, who has no emotional understanding, or Ghislaine Maxwell, who has no emotional attachment to humanity, and so are, in a sense, in their actions, sticking their hand entirely up their arse and pulling out shit and throwing it at people? Because that's really the essence of their actions, is that they are there to try and hurt people and to punish people for things that usually, and this is what I mean, I usually find out the context of their life is quite tragic and harsh, and all of those things. So Ghislaine Maxwell, she's born, and at the same, like 2 days after, I think it might even have to be the same day, I can never remember this, her brother Michael, I think it is, Maxwell, is in a car crash and goes into a coma, and the family's in complete shock and mourning for the first 4 years of her life, but she gets infantile anorexia, which is where mother battles, the baby battles with the mother for attention, and so refuses to eat and uses food as a tool to make sure that they have some form of input in some sort of way to attract them for the mum and to keep them occupied. And so her mum made some comment when she's 3 or 4 years old, oh, I've completely forgotten to bring up my daughter. I completely forgot my daughter. Ghislaine apparently came in the room and was like, Mum, I exist. and what you get from it is people who are emotionally tortured through their life and have a weird existence like that often they're not able to have their brain form in a way that gives them
almost like
attachment and all of the other
we hear about the MK Ultra or the Monarch mind control, where they fracture
this is why they choose these people, because when you profile how to break someone, you choose, and you want them to do stuff that's really illegal. You're going to choose people who are easy to break in some way if
Absolutely.
you need them in the right way.
Yeah.
And people who have already broken and you already have on your side and already all in, because once they're broken, they're usually yours for life. They're too deep. And you're right, you're very much right with the all-in feeling of everything that we feel now. And I think this is really what people don't realise, why this is so different now than before, is that they've used all of their collateral, their collateral with the media, their trust, anything that they had left. They tried to regain it just before, and it's lost again. It's gone back down to levels that were 3-4 years before the coronavirus, where it was at the lowest. So these guys have used up all their collateral. We got to a point where Andrew's having his titles taken off him and stuff.
Yeah.
They've got to they can then say anything. Because if you're on the way down in a plane and it's on fire, you can say whatever the hell you like. It doesn't make no difference.
Makes no difference at all.
Most people would probably say a range of things in that situation.
I think I'd probably use a lot of swear words in that situation.
Yeah.
Or maybe just one long fuck.
Or maybe you would just go up, put your fist up inside your ass and pull out some shit. And
I'd throw at that woman with a mask on just opposite, who's been annoying everyone.
Yeah. Oh my god! I had some experiences on planes over the coronavirus.
Did you?
Yeah, there one especially where it was from Mexico to Heathrow on British Airways. We couldn't come from Chile to Britain direct. They wouldn't allow us because we would have to quarantine for 10 days in a quarantine hotel with a 4-year-old, and you must be fucking joking.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, and she just would not. She would be. I mean, it's just psychological harm. That's just really just psychological torture for a 4-year-old not to be able to run around and do normal things for 10 days. That was just the idea of it is just no way. We were in a lucky situation where we could afford at the time to go to Mexico, Cancun, and we had to go there for an interview anyway.
That's a shame.
Oh, boo. Man,
It's
I'm
tough,
just,
isn't it?
I'm not into tourist resorts, so I'm just not into tourist resorts. I mean,
Well,
Mexico's
it's
beautiful.
always, it's like when you go to an all-inclusive resort. You go there and it's all ready-made fun. That's not fun for me.
No,
That is not fun for me.
It is
Well,
fun. It is.
and yeah, being out in the sticks, that's more like me. Away from people.
Yeah,
Don't really like
completely.
people very much.
Completely.
I like you, Johnny. We're doing good because
yeah.
we've just met tonight, by the way, and
Yeah.
we seem to do all right at the moment. I think we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I think so.
A bit stoned.
I think so. But this is one of the things is that we made a decision. Oh, it's such a silly decision. Do we want to be over there by all the really cool stuff in the jungle where everything's a bit quieter, or do we want to be here? Oh, well, we need to be here for the plane anyway. To catch the plane, so we may as well be there to make it easier. And then we got a hotel, and it was a fucking terrible old time. The hotel was a fucking nightmare. It was like one of those times where the first week of we were there for 2 weeks, so we could come from Mexico and not have to quarantine when we got back, and that worked out well. The first week was the most terrifying torment that I can't even explain. The hotel we were in, our Ritmo hotel, they don't like me there.
Did you leave a terrible review?
Yeah, but I mean, people will say I'm silly for not waiting till I left the hotel.
Oh, I see. Do you know, we talked about this earlier. Do one thing every day that scares you. So
I mean, the hotel was a terrible time. We paid a tiny bit extra. They gave us a little one of the discount rates, so we could be on with a patio on the beach, which was really nice. Apart from it smelled like sewage, God, and you could open all the patio doors. With
maybe
like
someone was shoving their hand up their arse and throwing shit. Who knows?
That might have been me. No, but they you could open all the doors from the outside, so it was like you couldn't even feel safe about it because you could just go like that with the locks. It was just those flip up locks, and on the other side, just use a butter knife and you're in. And
you're not painting a good picture here.
And there was loads of things. It was just and then we had food poisoning. She had food poisoning on 3 times in a week, and we had food poisoning twice. And it was and then there was all the COVID thing was like in place where they wanted to be like an authoritarian nightmare, and not in place everywhere else. And it was so annoying, so frustrating. The whole experience was hard.
You'd been better off going into quarantine, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we went over to another hotel and for the last week, and it was a joy. It was a real nice place, and we had a really nice time then because it was just chilling and just doing stuff. Even though, fuck man, I don't know what it is about me, but wherever I go, people look at me. I know what it is about me. It's like I'm quite expressive in my character and my face, and some people don't understand that, and they sometimes, you know, when you're in a foreign country, you can be a bit nervous and a bit anxious. And
so you start looking a bit shifty, do you?
I think I do, but I try and be really nice. And in Mexico, one of the things I had, we were there in the supermarket. We got to the till, and we had, and it was all ready. We're ready to pay for it, and the till went down. The electric went down in the store for just a short amount of time. We were sitting there, standing there for 5 minutes, and we were having a conversation with the lady at the till, and I was with another lady, and we were all having a lovely time. It was all nice. There was people in the queue who were laughing at the fact that we were having such a jolly time for such a situation. You know, it was all very nice. And then the manager and the security guard come up just as the till came back up, and I was literally like holding out my card to pay. They said, "We want to search your bag."
Oh no!
And I was like, "What? I'm standing at a till with like a whole shopping cart's worth of food. It's just been put through. I'm just about to pay, and you want to look in my bag?" And they were like, "Yes." I was like, "Well, I don't see that as being very right or fair, and I haven't done anything." And they said something to me that pissed me off and was a bit flippant, and so I went,
you kick off, do you?
Yeah, and I pulled out everything from my bag for them to see in a way that was like, yeah, look, there was nothing in my bag anyway, a coat in my bag, and I left with the lady I was with had to pay for the stuff, and I had to wait outside because I couldn't stay in there because I was so fucking.
Because you lost your temper.
Yeah, that is partially because I was on the old. Pharmaceutical.
Well, it's hard not to be there, isn't it? I suppose.
No, I was on I was on Prozac. I was on bad pharmaceuticals. On SRIs.
I had a little spell of them once.
It was like I went on them because I had anxiety, and when I got really anxious, I used to get like a little bit sweating, and that made me more anxious. And being on the pills just made me anxious and sweat all the time anyway, even more than before.
Good old Prozac.
As a side effect, and I was like, I don't understand it. And then you try and come off, and it's like heroin withdrawal. So it's like you have to be in the right frame of mind. And
I've got to thank Prozac for me starting to smoke weed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was prescribed it in about 2000. I went through a particularly bad spell in my life. I won't go into it. Boring. Been there. And I think I took it for about 3 months. And I didn't like the way it made me feel. But I did lose weight, which was a good thing. But my mate came over one night and he'd just grown some really nice weed. And I used to smoke it after clubs, but it was one of those drugs that I could take other drugs, but if I had a spliff, it would wipe me out because I didn't smoke it. Anyway, he gave me some of this weed, and I smoked a bit. And I was like, I like the way that makes me feel. That's nice, I like that. It's put me on a nice level, nice vibration. So I did the same the next night. I smoked only a small one. I like the way that makes me feel. I stopped the Prozac.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, it put me on a nice level. I wasn't that up and down that the Prozac would give you. Some days you'd be good, some days you'd be bad.
Do you know how I got off after? And I was on Prozac for 10 years at the end. I tried to come off on about 8 different occasions. I tried multiple times to request to try and come off it with some sort of help from the doctors, and he would never even just get back to me. They just left me on it. They wanted me on it. It was probably ticking some box for the money for them.
Yeah, of course.
They were getting something in for it. And so they wouldn't help me in any way. There was no way to get. There was no way. There was like they just would leave me on this stuff forever, and I don't even know what this stuff is anymore. I mean, especially I kind of went through. I was already pretty awake in my life, so it was pretty down point that led me to get onto this stuff, like in the first place. But then like the proper waking up process, the one where you realize you're not only awake but you got to do something as well. That was the point where I was like, I got to get off this stuff, and that was about 5-6 years ago. Really? And I was trying very hard to get off this stuff, and it's really insipid stuff. It's really horrible. It's a real nasty stuff, and they don't want to help you, of course, and they don't want to give you any. So I had to think, how am I going to get around this? I'll cook a massive tray of the most potent weed brownies, space cake that I could possibly
it's made me feel hungry.
And I would get so completely and utterly wrecked that I would sleep for the majority of the first
different dimension, right?
Yeah, and it worked very well. It was 2 big trays of brownie that I ate over 3 days and slept nearly the entire time through it, and come out the other side like, I can feel emotion again. But it's like a level. It's a dullness. You know what it's doing to you at the time, but you can't express it until you get out of it. The way you no longer see yourself as distant from the whole group. You see yourself as part of it again, and that's really why people are put on this stuff.
And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, that cannabis is illegal in this country. Because if everyone smoked it, they'd be off pharmaceuticals in no time. And they might actually critically talk about stuff and critically think, that would be such a joy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think one of the things that could change that is something that came up. I was having an argument. It was silly. It's one of those Twitter arguments. It's just
that you'll never win.
No, well, this one's silly because we're both on the same side. The guy, Someone was saying about Rick Simpson oil, and I was saying, "Oh, Rick Simpson oil, that's great."
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "Oh, it was already done by Ras. They knew the healing power of marijuana." And it was like, "Yeah, but they didn't put it into a small tincture that meant you could take it daily in a way that would methodically medicate yourself and change people's view of marijuana from being something you have to prepare, grow, to do all of this stuff, to being just something that is just medicine, straight medicine that you can take." That is a game changer. That is a game changer in the way people viewed it from the outside. And if
this was the Charlotte's Web, was it?
No, because this is Rick Simpson oil was made. It's just basically how you make the oil. The process of making the oil was originally done by Rick. In America, it's called Rick Simpson oil. Over here, it's a way to make the oil, so you can get out most of the CBD. Charlotte's Web stuff was the strain where they got it to be a ratio of about 22% CBD and about 0.04% THC. So you basically got no THC in there at all, and you've got the amount of CBD. It's just like a healing plant. It's just amazing.
Well, its thing is the CBD and the THC. It's a tandem drug.
Yeah.
A lot of this modern weed, I went into it quite scientifically. I really wanted to know how to grow it properly and how it would benefit me personally. And it was a simple equation. All this weed, the skunk that's made these days, is high THC, zero CBD. So you get the paranoia and the psychosis can come with that. Now, if you grow weed with minimum, I only grow minimum 5% CBD at minimum, and it can be as high as you want with the THC, but it's a tandem drug. And instead of feeling paranoid and feeling a bit sketchy, you're chatty and you get the munchies, and it's a happy thing and it's a relaxing thing.
And the thing for a lot of people know, I mean, when a lot of people say like THC and CBD, and they know those two sort of ideas, but there's a lot of other things. There's a CBC, CBG, CBD, all sorts of things that are involved in it that are also taken away when people are trying to produce something in a manner that is like eugenically pleasing for some, or pleasing for some on the eugenic scene.
Absolutely,
trying to get the most out of it, the best of this, like potency out of it, but it does leave behind, a lot of the stuff, and it was a big, the good stuff gets left behind, and it was a big change in the whole way people viewed weed over the past like 6-7 years as being reintroducing weed in the way that it should be.
That's another thing I'm doing. I'm going back old school weed.
Oh, nice.
So not modern weed again. It's crossbred, and it grows massive amounts per plant.
A lot of the old stuff that was CBD heavy, if I remember correctly, the older plants that were CBD heavy were usually like 4% CBD, 4% THC. They were literally balanced.
Yeah.
It's like they were grown to be like that. I don't know if that was something that naturally occurred once they mixed the strains enough, or is that's the direction they were mixing the strains to, or crossing the phenotypes.
I did see a documentary about this. I think he was a Dutch guy, and he was going around the world finding the original strains of weed and getting the seeds from them.
Strain hunter. Maybe.
Yeah, something like
he might be from Greenhouse Seed Companies. He's Aaron, I think his name.
Yeah,
is.
I think that's the guy. It was a really interesting documentary. He's quite amazing, really.
Those guys, it was a weird one because Greenhouse Seed Company was like really they were about to be like the biggest thing. They were the first time Europeans were really competing with a level of all-round quality to anything that you'd find in Canada or America. It was the first time it was coming.
Thank the Dutch for that.
And some of it was really it was like the first time that you could have Exodus cheese seeds that actually smelled that funky Exodus cheese way. But then they had a split within their little group. The one, I can't remember his name, he went one way and Aaron and his lot went the other way, and I think someone else took over the seed company, and all of the Exodus cheese ones started like popping up hermaphrodites all of the time. No longer,
really?
And it was just like a lot of, I think their quality went downhill after that, and it was a real shame because they were
that happened to me once. It was the saddest day.
I'm not going to talk about it.
No, we won't talk about it. It was the saddest day.
I know. I understand.
I was only 2 weeks away.
And oh man, it's just For people who don't know, and for people who have been within growing communities before, will have a bit of clue of this. But
you will feel our pain.
when you see a stalk and you see a big bulge on it that looks like it's about to break open with a load of pollen.
Weed spunk.
Yeah, weed spunk. It's not nice looking stuff either. You know it's there to ruin everything.
Yeah, it fucked every female plant in there.
And the way most people actually do these sort of things are usually sort of indoor methods with lots of fans and stuff, so you can't get away without it spreading all over the place, because weed spunk is the most spreadiest. It's the most funkiest to spunk it you could possibly spunk.
It is.
And what happens is that sometimes a strain isn't stabilized enough that they sell it off, and you'll have a couple that are like, I don't know how it happens. It's just they're easily stressed. They've got low immune systems, things like that, something along those lines. But it causes them.
Mine was down to pure stupidity.
Oh God.
Oh God. I decided. So I had one seed of a white widow autoflower. I didn't think for a minute that the autoflower would cause these problems, but it did, and it was in with the other ones, and so that was the cause of the spunk.
People in the weed community will also know that auto-flowering, though it's a wonderful creation, because auto-flowering works on a different routine, and just they're much easier to manage because they basically stay on the same light cycle the entire time. But the problem is they're crossed with something called ruderalis, which is like a
great knowledge.
Which is a third type of weed strain, where you got sativa and indica, and ruderalis is from southern Russia, if I'm right, and it, like, when it grows, it doesn't really grow potent weed like you would have the others grow, but when you cross it over, it gives the other strains, the other sativa and indica dominant, if you mix it correctly, strain. It allows that to work on the same photoperiod cycle as this ruderalis strain. I think that's how you say it. And the problem is it's not stable, so you end up with, sometimes people have, they got to work. There is loads of seed companies all around the world who work really hard at this stuff, and there's some guys who are really just cowboys, and they get away with having networks of people who give them good names online, but they're cowboys.
I always wanted to create my own strain. So we know there's only one British strain, and that's cheese, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The only true British strain. And I always wanted to create my own.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to meet Howard Marks a couple of times when I was younger.
I met him once. I was so proud. I was so...
Honestly, I felt like I was meeting the king.
Yeah, I know. I mean, okay, just hold it there. Your own strain. For people at home who don't know, Howard Marks was at one time one of the most wanted drug runners in the entire world. He was being pursued by the top guys in America and Britain and everywhere.
FBI's, yeah.
He was a little boy who was from Kenfig Hill, which is in just outside Bridgend, but it's like the majority of it now, and later on it become really like overcast by this place North Kennelly, which is a really rough area. So Kenfig Hill went downhill a lot. But anyway, Howard Marks, he was born in Kenfig, and he got a scholarship to go to Balliol College in Oxford.
He did indeed.
And he was just a Welsh boy smoker who discovered all of the stuff, didn't really it wasn't really interested in being in with the establishment, but made loads of links and become one of the biggest just drugs runner. This was a time during
using the IRA to bring drugs into the UK.
He did use it, but he was a mad IRA guy apparently. So, of course,
they did make a film of it, didn't they?
I remember somewhere distantly, but I read Mr. Nice.
So did I. I love that book. I read it on a holiday actually.
It was one of the. It's like it gives me that same feeling that Bill Bryson would give someone as an author like that, where it's just a feel good romp through real life and adventure, the reality of it, and Howard Marks So, if you're a smoker in Wales, Howard Marks is the king of this country.
He's God.
He after being chased around all around the world, he eventually got caught, served, I think it was about 17 years in Quarter prison in America. Real rough prison, and he was loved there. He was seen for the person he was there, which he was helped loads of people there. He helped with the legal efforts.
One in particular, actually. So I saw him give a lecture at Festival on the Isle of Wight. It was in an amphitheatre, and it was a couple of years before he died. And he... I'm at Festival chatting to him, and so he was asked to teach English and a lot of them were lads from the ghetto, and one of them in particular he taught, and he turned out to be Biggie Small, the Notorious B.I.G. Yeah. So whilst he was in prison, he taught him how to read and write.
Notorious B.I.G. Notorious B.I.G. I mean, this is how cool Howard Marks is.
I know, and he didn't know obviously it was him until he became famous.
This is the thing about Howard Marks, is that there's stories galore. After his time in prison, he lived in between Wales and Majorca or somewhere like that.
And India.
A few places, because I mean he's gone through all of that. He's taken it really well. He's such a beautiful human being, such a really kind fella, and he would go around, write books, talk with a lot of people, and of course he was one of the biggest campaigners for the legalization of marijuana.
Absolutely.
That he could have found around the place. He would plant seeds in the front of the police stations. He would go in there with a big joint and try and get arrested, and they would not arrest him. They'd tell him, Howard, you're going to have to leave, please, stop coming in here. And he'd be standing there with a big blunt, smoking away. He was a legend. My own meeting with him was swift. I was walking down the street, maybe 2011 or something, 2010, coming back from, I was working in it used to be Virgin Megastores back in.
Oh yeah.
I was in a band doing music and taking lots of drugs. So working in a music store and a game section was pretty cool. Yeah, I used to demo Rock Band and stuff back in the day. Oh my god, it was terrible. I used to have such fun going in. Like it was good times. But we were coming back. Me and my friend, we used to live in Grangetown, which is a bit rough down there, and saw him on the way by talking with someone, and I just said to my man Monkey, I was like, oh my god, it's Howard Marks. And I had to go up to him and got down on my knee, and I've only done that a couple of times with a couple of people in my life. I got down on my knees and said, Mr. Marks, I love you, sir. Thank you for everything you've done.
I agree.
Humble. He was beautiful. I never asked for anything like autograph or anything from someone who would. I'm not interested. I just wanted to shake his hand and tell him.
That's exactly what I did actually.
And I think a lot of people have that relationship with these sort of.
So when he was fighting cancer towards the end of his life, he was given a 6-month supply of the cannabis oil, and he decided to take it all in one night. And he had to be shipped off. He had a kind of psychosis. He was really poorly from it. He took that 6-month supply in one night. And why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Let's try. They still didn't kill him. It was
it's just one of the many stories of the legend of him.
Amazing.
And we're both Welshmen here, and as smokers, that is hail to the king.
Great memories, aren't they?
Yeah, really, really great memories. But also, one thing from coming from a country where you've got like 3 million people is that it is a very small place. So you do meet those people around, and you do get to and the people who come from Wales. I think that's why we don't necessarily see a lot of the nasty, pernicious people in society who are trying to control the societies being Welsh, because they know they'd have to go back home. I say that, but what do you think to our current dystopian rulers in Wales then?
Well, like most people, I'd like to hurt him.
Yeah.
I think the way he's hurt this country, we should be hunting him down with pitchforks and torches.
I know how you feel, man. I know how you feel.
There's people who've, publicans who relied on that money at Christmas or just after Christmas to keep their business going, to keep their families fed. They've had to close up, losing, and sometimes these village pubs that have lost they're part of the community.
Yeah,
they're in the centre of the community.
I don't think people ever realise that until you live out in the sticks or in a rural
Absolutely,
area.
and when you've got a good pub
It is,
where people can meet, people's mental health improves. A lot of people live on their own. They stop off for a pint or they stop for a drink just so they can have a chat with somebody. And this is where that government's taken that away. They've taken those...
I mean, that's been attacked on many angles. I know I went into a pub in a place where you probably know very well, Brecon. I went up to Talabont.
Yeah.
And the Star
It is beautiful up there, isn't it?
Yeah. The Star Inn's always been a lovely pub up there. I know there's one pub up there in Talabont which is a little bit... There's some stories that come out of that place. I'm like, whoa, man. But the other place, the Star, it's a lovely... It always was lovely. But back in the day, I used to go there. About 15 years ago, you could say, maybe a little bit more. You'd go there and everybody who was there were part of a family unit, really. It was like the village was completely and utterly combined by it. And I went there recently and the whole place had been sold off. It was run as a business. It was attracting loads of people from outside, and it didn't seem to be...
It lost its heart.
Yeah. And I think that's why maybe the locals ended up going to the other place and it gets a little bit funky.
Yeah, well, indeed, yeah.
But a lot of places have that. They lost their heart with I come from a family of two things, like steel workers and miners, right on the one side, right far in the past, but landlords on either side, both my mum and my dad's side. My dad's side, my granddad Reginald Vedmore, he run the Dusty Forge up in Ely, which was one of the roughest pubs you could have in Cardiff. It was
really?
Closed down. They have to steal the furniture back every night. It was
Ely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always had such a bad name, hasn't it?
Which I love. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but I mean, those places. Some of them, of course, it's probably good they closed down. But a lot of it lost their heart. It lost its heart, and I think British heart was built around the pub. Our whole culture was built around
Absolutely.
the pub.
Revolutions were started in pubs.
Yeah, pubs and clubs, and that's the other thing you see not going down. You don't see. So sad to walk through the city centre and think of all the different places you could go back when you were younger and just don't exist nowadays and won't ever exist again.
No, absolutely. There's one club I used to love going to when I was younger, called Emporium. I think it was on St Mary Street at the top. I was a bit of a raver back in the day, Johnny. I can't lie to you. Going up there, and that's the second time I met Howard Marks in there, and I didn't even know they had a bit of a VIP room. I think there was a DJ called Jeremy Healy, old school. He used to be in a band called Hazy Fantasy back in the day, and he became quite a big name DJ. Did all the Paris catwalk DJing and stuff. And he was an Emporium in Cardiff. It was a great night. It was great. But I managed to sneak myself into the VIP room. I had no idea. I was in a bit of a state. I could have been anywhere. But I happened to be there, and I sat down, and this guy passed me a spliff, and it was Howard Marks.
Oh, in the handbag.
But I had, just for that split, I had no idea who I was chatting to. I was in a bit my own world. You know what I'm saying?
Like you are in Emporium back then.
Do you know what I used to love about Emporium? It was a great story. So you had to go to the toilet, you had to go up these really steep stairs. And all the stairs were quite even until you got to the top step, and it was about 3 inches taller. So what would happen, people would get to the top and trip over that step. But there was always a puddle of piss at the top of the steps where they'd come out of the toilet. So you could stand back and you could watch these people come at the steps, and they'd clip the top and they'd go hands and knees straight into this puddle of piss. You'd want to...
No, sorry, that was a Friday, Saturday night outing. That was a good...
There we go.
Back in the day, stand at the top of the stairs,
and watch someone trip into piss.
Somebody falling in piss. They couldn't even get any better than a night like that, to be perfectly honest.
Perfect. Yeah. And I mean, the only reason I knew is because I did it myself.
Yeah.
So the next time you go there, I'm just going to watch, see how many other people do it. But yeah, he passed me a spliff, and it was Howard Marks, and absolutely... brought me out of my little trance I was in. I was like that. Oh my! And this again, where I shook his hand, I was blown away. And I think to take those opportunities is amazing. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine. Now this guy is you should have him in and speak to you. His name's Darren Hopkins. He's from Hereford, or from the Hereford area.
Oh God, I've known a few of those.
And he is, as far as the Truther movement's concerned, he's a warrior. Now he goes out every day into town centres with the Light newspaper, whether you like it, whatever your views are on it. Regardless, they put some good stuff out.
Well, I know Richie Allen was really pumping it at the start, trying to put it out on his stage.
So Darren is just unreal. He'll go out into each town centres, and he'll go. He's doing a massive tour at the moment, but he'll go to the town centre with a load of these light paper and a load of leaflets and stuff that he's paid for out of his own pocket, and he engages people, gives them a newspaper. People will take a newspaper off you. People want to look. So they take it,
and if it's soft secrets, then even better.
Exactly. So he chats to him and he engages with him. He gets a lot of negativity, but he's not a threatening guy, and so he's got something. Mm-hmm. He's able to engage these people, and even the most asleep people, he's engaged them, and they go, "No, I don't want one." And he's going, "No, please take one." It's an alternative to the mainstream news, and it tells them the facts and figures. Now he's been doing this for about maybe 18 months, and the amount of people he's engaged is unreal, and he's got groups of people in all these different towns. The stand in the parks he puts together. He's just absolutely incredible. And he had a moment. I think he was in Kidderminster, in the town centre, handing the newspaper out, and he noticed out the corner of his eye Sajid Javid.
Oh yes, baby.
He took that moment to perfection. You might have seen the video. It went a little bit viral. This was back in maybe.
Sajid Javid gets himself in some corners, doesn't he?
So he goes up to Sajid Javid and said, "Can I have a picture?" And Sajid Javid goes to pose. And he went, "You've committed genocide. Why are you giving this to kids?" And you go, "You're a murderer." And he was stood there like a pose, Sajid Javid, until he realised he'd been fucked over, and he disappeared. Well, Darren, and he had his moment and took it to perfection. Yeah. And I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud to call him my friend, because I think if we had 100 Darrens doing what he's doing, the information, that the balance would be swung back to us.
So, okay, as good smokers, we had to take a quick break, and we forgot completely what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get on.
But we couldn't give a fuck, could we?
No,
absolutely.
I hope you don't hold it against us, even though. If you do want to know what I was going to say next, please write down my previous sentence and send it on a postcard to BBC Wales. Fuck you, FUCKYOU. Okay, so the Truther movement in general.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, it's once upon a time, it was a real small group of people.
Yeah, who smelt of hemp.
Yeah, isn't that always the way? Why do these people always smell a little bit like old weed?
I know.
Like always like they sweat the stuff. But yeah, I mean, I can go back. My whole awakening of anything was really September the 11th. Like for nearly everybody, like it was like
maybe a bit of Princess Diana. Maybe
I have to say, I was so bored of hearing about Princess Diana throughout my entire life that I remember very well when I got told that she died. I was watching a kids' football tournament with a mate of mine. His little brothers were playing in this big football tournament that was all kids from all around schools all around the place, and it was in Tenbury Wells, a lovely little place up on the Shropshire border. And it's a real nice little town. I lived there for about a month and a half with him because I couldn't get any money to get home. And his mum was a hippie, and there was lots of weed and lots of other stuff. So it was like I was young, and it was a wonderful place to hang out.
Yeah.
But I remember I was there, and I was about 17. Someone said, "Oh, did you hear? Princess Diana has died." And I didn't have. I just didn't have any more sympathy to give the woman.
Yeah, I get that.
It felt like we had been fed into us by both the people who, it was weird because it was the people who support the royals, like the BBC and stuff, were the ones who were making Diana an anti-royal thing happen
Yeah.
more than anything. It was a really weird thing because it was like your mum saying that she loves you and then slapping you across the face all the time. You know, it's like it always had like a weird tinge. Like I want to feel sorry for her, but she's in the royal family and
but she should have been with her kids. And all that.
I hear it all, but they're a pair of fucking shits, aren't they? It's really hard to have sympathy for the other class. I know that lots of people say she wasn't that class, but there was a lot about her. And yes, okay, she was young. She was chosen as a vessel. Simply as that. He has no capability of loving anyone but himself and someone who sees him as the real king. And there's only one woman around who sees him as the real king. Old Camilla.
Yep.
And the whole thing was just like, have a hard time. Real hard time. And it didn't really touch me. It didn't wake me up that much.
I think it was probably my dad said, they'd done her in. She was getting too chopsy. And those sort of things. Oh, really? You know, and
that would, and maybe if I was a little bit older, I would have cared a little bit more. I think that might be.
Yeah, maybe. We discovered I'm a few years older than yourself.
Because later on, when I did discover about all of the facts surrounding the Diana death and the things that are really mysteriously awful, like,
did you ever see that Inquest to an Inquest? The Princess Diana story. It was produced.
God, man, I watch every single documentary I possibly can.
So it was produced. I think it was commissioned by Mohammed Al Fayed, and it was produced by Lily Allen's dad, Keith Allen.
Yeah,
and it was but it was that's it, and Twin Towns guy.
Yeah.
He was the farmer, wasn't he? So and it was an inquest to the inquest, and it just showed how many myths, truths there were in the inquest, and how stuff was left out, and it just stank, really, didn't it? You know, how can a journalist shoot himself twice in the head? You know, as suicide. How does that happen? Anyway, and so those sort of things, and then I can remember watching things like after 9/11. Is it The Ripple Effect or Loose Change? I can never remember which one it is.
Possibly Loose Change, because Loose Change was really the first one that blew. And that's I've been on his show a couple of times. Jason Pamas was behind the Loose Change final cut, the one that really like sealed, like they had sealed everything off. I think that was actually produced by Alex Jones early on, and
oh wow, really?
As well. I think there was a little bit of like a bit of aid given to the later editions because he was getting a platform on InfoWars at the time. But I think there was the people behind it, Dylan Avery and stuff, who were behind the original. That was groundbreaking. That was the first time that you saw independent documentary hitting that level of there was so many points in it.
Absolutely.
That just
perfect time for the internet as well, wasn't it?
It really, it is one of the films that woke up nearly every single person, because when September the 11th happened, I was in bed. I remember it was about 2:30 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon, and I was still in bed, and I was in a good place, you could say, and when it happened, it was like the next 2 years, was just, I couldn't stop reading every single thing about it. I had to buy every single newspaper and read every single. It just did not make sense, and I wanted it to make sense. And it's like the Camus thing of trying to make a sense out of absurdity. You know, so trying to make some sort of sense out of something that's just completely and utterly nuts.
And it's definitely one of those occasions where you, I especially like JFK. Where were you when JFK? Yeah. People remember, and where were you when you saw 9/11? I was in Ibiza. I was in a hotel in Ibiza, and all I could think of myself was, well, security is going to be a nightmare going back. It absolutely was. But and to see those buildings fall, but then to see those documentaries, you're right. I think they woke up a huge amount of people. As we discussed earlier, you know, for me, so I had a massive mushroom trip in Amsterdam, which really, I think Bill Hicks described it as squeegee in your third eye, where it really did start to wake me up. And then in 2007, the 7/7 bombings happened in London, and I was straight away. I was like, this isn't right.
Yeah,
there's something.
No, I remember that very well. Because
I was in Oxford.
I was in Lyon in France. I had moved there 2 days before, and I had gone through all of those. You know, when people go, I had gone through that terminal where the bombing was just 2 days before. I'm doing that right now, you know.
I know, I love that. I love it when that happens.
I do it, but it was like I got to France, and I was just moving over to France for the first time. To like, I didn't know I had sold up all my stuff. Falling in love with a girl, you know, and stuff.
Such a romantic story.
Oh yeah, I know. It was. Of course, it was a hard move. Your first move over to any other country is hard, but God, those French don't make it easy on you. And the further south you go, the more cookie they get. They're down in the bottom, right in the south, they're the best. Somewhere I was like Lyon's. South middle, really.
So if you didn't speak the language, you were doing nothing but shit on their shoe.
No. In actual fact, they all wanted you to speak English to them all the time, and I was trying to learn French, and I was there working in. I couldn't finding a job was going to be hard because I didn't know French, so like looked around everywhere, and. The one thing that worked out for me is when I was 19, an alcoholic Irishman called Brian Byrne gave me a job in Hilton Cardiff. And so I had Hilton on my CV. And I knew that the Hilton Lyon probably wouldn't contact the Hilton Cardiff, which would be good because they would say, no, don't employ him. He speaks his mind.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. I managed 2 years in the Hilton Cardiff, and I was basically, I mean, that was my first full-time job.
And what a great job!
Opening 5-star hotel. It was fucking mental. It was mental. And like the first guest, when the doors were actually opened up, the first guest I helped with the luggage was P Diddy's manager, and it was like I knew from that point on it was like, oh, this is going to be
great.
This is going to be a really strange one. And I saw some of the most strangest things happen in a 5-star hotel, especially at the time. It also coincided with the opening of the Millennium Stadium, because of course the Millennium Stadium was buzzing,
huge, wasn't it?
And a lot of the time, all through that era as well, there was Wembley was shut down for a long period during that period. So nearly every single match, FA Cup final, everything went through Cardiff.
I remember watching the Rugby World Cup in Cardiff. It was at '99, I think it was. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was when I first started working in like 5-star hotels. It was in September, October was the official opening of the hotel. We started there back in July before it had actually officially opened. And Prince Charles came to open the hotel, and they selected a few individuals from the hotel who were going to meet him. For some reason, they demanded that every department be represented, including at the time I was working nights as a night porter, as a like concierge desk, doing naughty things all of the time. Puppy sounds in the background, by the way.
The gorgeous Bella.
Yeah, she's a lovely girl. But yeah, so they made me come in the middle of a night, 2 night shifts during the first days of the Rugby World Cup, and the opening of this hotel properly, like officially, and it was packed out, and they made me come in after a night shift. So me and my mate Ollie, who was also coming in, we went off and we smoked a shitload of weed. We got as drunk as we could possibly get. So we went in about 1:30. We could barely stand. We walked in, and they said, "Okay, you gotta." They had this German designer come in to design the uniforms. They weren't wearing the normal Hilton uniform. This was a special hotel opening of everything was new and interesting and all this. So we all looked like Captain Scarlet. I mean, seriously, we all had this Captain Scarlet uniforms.
Have you still got it?
Yeah. No, I wish I did. I mean, no way it would
stuff.
fit me now. I was a young boy. I was on £4 an hour. Those were the days. It wasn't the lowest wage I'd ever earned. And yeah, we had to come in to meet Prince Charles, and we were baked. We were heavily baked, and we walked in, and they said, "Help us with the luggage quickly, clear the luggage." And we were trying to walk with this luggage, and we could barely stand up. We were using it to something. And in the end, I remember there was this guy, Ben Bodie and Rob White, these 2 guys who I worked with, who held me up either side as Prince Charles asked me questions, so I didn't fall over. And they took a picture of me.
And they let you ask Prince Charles a question.
I got in there, and no, Prince Charles asked me a question.
Oh,
yeah, asked me an amazing question. You imagine what questions you could ask a porter in a hotel? He asked me, he must have thought about this when he said, "What are your pockets for?" He said, I stopped and looked at him, and there was so many things I wanted to say, but I was really high and really drunk, and it wasn't like I was on the edge of getting fired, and I was like being held up by either side. Like,
I love that story.
And I kind of shrugged a little bit. And he went, "Notepads, I suppose." And I was like, "Yeah, notepads." Notepads, and then he went on down the line. Somewhere in the ether of the universe, there is a picture.
I suppose it doesn't really matter what question they ask you, because it doesn't make any. So they could just maybe that'd be a great game, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Just randomly asking someone a question like,
"What are your pockets?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what are your pockets for?
How can you answer such a question? I mean, the thing is that you do have to accept. Oh, there's a dog-cat fight going on at your.
It's the cutest dog-cat fight there.
Yeah, there's a little black and white cat currently fighting a little chalky puppy in the floors. On the floor, yeah. I'm sorry.
I'd say that it was honours even.
Yeah. I would say to Bella, you leave her alone. You know, if she doesn't want you, you're only going to get battered in the face, and you don't like any of it. They want to be friends. They really do. They haven't learned how to find an equilibrium yet.
Age-old enemies.
They are. They're these two guys. They're cute. But I mean, working in a hotel meant that I got to see loads of stuff, and I think that probably prepared me. Because that was like, I mean, I started.
That was like university, was it?
Yeah, well, in 2001 I left there, and then I was unemployed for a bit. I remember I went to Bristol with a girlfriend. It was on my birthday, so it was April time, and I slipped on the wet road and I knocked the back of my head and I got concussion, and then I came home and I just could not return to work. I could not face the idea of it. I just could not face it. And that was partially because by that point I had been promoted. Every time I walked in a hotel, I got promoted. It was such an easy sort of like arena for me to go into because I'm a talky guy. So as soon as I'm on front desk, you know, I'm answering phones and talking with people and doing stuff and things, and they saw that as like perfect. We does you know, he does the work and he does that as well, and so they kept always promoting me, hoping that I could put that across to other people. But as soon as I got into positions of power, of course, I would suit it. I would put it into my own purpose, like any elite would, and I would basically everybody who was employed would be a smoker, and we'd have fantastic smoking sessions during the night.
Oh, right.
And we'd of course. In a hotel, and all the hotels I've worked for remember this. And
only the prettiest girls.
When you're a night manager, especially, is you have keys to all of the fridges, all of the.
So would you get shit faced all night?
Shit faced all night. Eat the most fantastic. We'd make platters of food like
wow.
We'd drink what we
like
want
Stoner's delight.
Yeah, completely. I mean. Hilton, it was a case you'd go into their back room and you'd have to do a bit sneaky-ish. But even the night manager, who was at the time in the Hilton, just when I went on to be night manager afterwards, I went on in places like Holiday Inn in the city centre, which is right under the Millennium Stadium as well, and was a right rough place at times. Wow. That was a fantastic place. I saw a few. Got into a few. I mean, I've got 1,000 stories from that.
I mean, my sister used to own one of the biggest escort agencies in South Wales around about that time, and so she regularly used to send girls to those hotels.
And I met a lot of those girls.
I
don't want to stop the flow, but on that subject, there's something I think is really important to understand. I met a lot of sex workers, what people call sex workers. I don't even think that's a nice name, and other people call them prostitutes, and of course that is a kind of...
Let's call them ladies of the night.
Yeah, you know, girls. I'm talking about girls who are over the age of 18, usually within the ages of about 24, 25 to about like up to 40-ish. It was the usual age range of girls who would come to the hotels. Yeah. They're usually working completely independently, and they rely on the people at the front desk to have their safety at heart. because you in the night time.
Oh, that's nice though. It's just nice
that disappears. These girls know when they go into a place if someone's going to be accepting to what they do or not by just a very look on their face.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, these girls go through these workers have worked every single man in every single way you can possibly imagine, and they know the type of character you are as soon as they speak to you. Like, these girls are
they'd make great psychologists, I reckon, wouldn't they?
Fantastic. Well, first time I started talking with these girls was in the Hilton, and we were told in my very first interview with the wonderfully drunk Brian Byrne, I didn't think I was going to get the job. I was suited as best I could, but it was the Hilton. It was an opening 5-star hotel. I had like all my experience was working in like the bong shop and stuff.
You didn't tell me about that. That sounds like a great job.
Yeah, well, I worked in the Oriental Arts in Cardiff. That was my like first proper job when I was.
Nice.
I went in. Oh, that's a load of stories in itself. That was a fantastic place, a really quirky place at the time. But of course, it was a place where there was 2 rival places in Cardiff at that time that sold bongs in abundance, and that was one of them. It also sold samurai swords and stuff like that. So
I think I remember that place.
But of course, that's not very good for your CV. But the first thing he said to me, we sat down, and it was an interview on the 13th floor of Capitol Towers in Cardiff, and he sat me down, and I was really nervous, and he said, "All right then, boy, what happens if a man comes along and he wants a woman?" And I said, "Well, I suppose you would direct him to the red light district and then..." "No, you don't, boy. You go get him a woman. You phone her up. You bring her in. You take him out there up to the room. You introduce her to the guy, and you etc. etc. Trained from the first question.
Wow. The
first question that he asked was that. What would?
Because they know where their business comes from, don't they?
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, all right then."
This sounds fun.
That sounds funny, if anything. Now, what you do learn from that. Now, later on, there was a whole event that happened that officially stopped that behaviour from happening. And when they took me into the room eventually and said, "Why did you think it was all right to get guest prostitutes?" I was like, because it was the first thing I was told on the very first interview question by Brian Byrne. And they all knew Brian Byrne was a terrible alcoholic who used to give people really the worst, was an old school manager.
He probably wouldn't even remember what he said or who he hired.
He collapsed twice in that hotel for alcohol poisoning.
Wow.
I mean, in front of people. He could barely stand up. And it was quite an impressive feat that he had managed to get into the
almost like your mentor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I had a mix of mentors in that hotel, because the other mentor was a German guy who was really straight up called Marcus Callis, who always went around and be talking like this, and he didn't even need to work. Him and his brother.
Where was he from, did you say?
Yeah, him and his brother were like rich Germans, really rich Germans. Their father owned like shares in some Chrysler or some stuff like that, some other more German company and some other place. And when he died, he left it all to the brothers, and they just decided, we're gonna the supermarket brothers did, we're gonna compete with what we do. And so the one went off to work in hotels, the other one went off to work in hotels, and they tried to work up the ladder as quickly as they could to prove that they were better than the other brother.
I thought he was going to say Aldi and Lidl's then.
Yeah, I one of either Lidl or Aldi was originally set up with another brother who was competing, and they set it up and they competed against each other, and the one won out. But I don't think it was Aldi and Lidl. I think it was Lidl.
And I still never remember which one they are.
Yeah. Well, the one's the one with the bananas that are probably edible, and the other one's the ones that are not. I don't know which ones they are, but
thanks for that. That's Johnny's shopping tips, ladies and gentlemen.
But yeah, the first time I met, and this is why it's really important to talk about this, but the first time that I then was introduced to women who were prostitutes and etc. was through that understanding that when a woman come in, she was going to be shitting herself nervous, because she's walking into not just a hotel, she's walking into a 5-star hotel where you don't get to the reception desk before you've spoken to the concierge. You don't get anywhere before you're talking to the reception desk as well. And then if they need to have the manager come out to speak to you and check you out again, they're going to do it. So the first person is the most important person, because the concierge could get you past reception desk and the other two faces, of course. We were there for that, and we all knew the routine in the place when a girl come in, including the management there. So it was always the same way. Keep out of the guest business as much as you can. Get them a girl. Was most of the people. Brian Byrne was like, get them everything and do whatever. you know, you have to
whatever they want.
You have to be happy. And so I met these type of ladies, and my meetings with them was having long conversations with them. Usually it'd be
straight away you see their humanity.
At like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, they would come down from a room where they've just made themselves a week's wage easy. They've usually got kids. Their kids are usually with the woman's mum, staying for the weekend, and she does the work over just 2 days, so she can make sure she's there every single day for the kid. The majority of them have boyfriends who know exactly what they're doing. The majority of those boyfriends tend to work in the army and tend to be away, and know fully well they want to come home and they want to have a girl who's fun and outgoing and stuff, and they are willing to look past that. And then the girlfriend's also willing to say, well, you're going away to the army.
And the girlfriend's got plenty of money to spoil them with when they come back.
Well, it's the both. I mean, the thing is that there's something about human relationships where it's a dynamic and balance all over the place, and sometimes that balance includes sexual balance, and that is something that was very much within that. And what you learn is that every single one of these women are doing it for reasons you cannot say anything about. Nearly all of the time, there are and we focus in, and it's important to focus in, and I focus in on my work on the ones who it's unconsensual. It's non-consensual, and that's where the problem is with a lot of it, because a lot of women that I've met who have come to hotels and etc., they stop afterwards, and because you're nice to them and because you judge them on anything else but being a human being, and you go like this, give them a grimace and etc., because you'll actually talk with them, they usually stop by and have a little chat with you, and you can always say, do you want to sit down and have a cup of tea? And then you have a long conversation, and sometimes multiple with you, having a long conversation with a woman who's a sex worker, and what you discover is that you're exactly like them in so many different ways, and they've just chosen to do that because they have that balance of ethics and morals that have come from usually their own experiences as well, and usually hard experiences and hard things. So I thought I should say that because all my experience of meeting these ladies, and some are more complicated than others, because I mean it's not the most easy.
They're just normal girls.
Yeah.
In sometimes extraordinary positions, but they are just normal.
Sorry, there's a pun in there.
There is somewhere. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's the whole world is a lot more simple. But if we go back to what we were talking about just before that,
about
all that opening up hotels and stuff, for me was opening also my mind to talking with people and communicating with people. And after a while, especially working in a 5-star hotel, I saw a little bit behind the curtain of these people.
Yeah.
And by the time September the 11th happened, I had already had that experience. And I was just like, but no, this doesn't. It was like a robot going out of control.
Absolutely.
I couldn't take it. And it was only when those documentaries come out that people really started this sort of truther movement that came. It scared the hell out of these guys, and they've tried every way to tackle it. And now it's a hyper attack on truthers now. So I'm going to ask you about it. I want to say first, I saw a little clip on Channel 4, and I don't know if you've seen it, where the Alpha Men Go or something they're called. It's a bunch of guys, and they've tried to make them look like it's some sort of militia group. Okay. They tried to make them give them all the, and then they said this, and what they were saying was oh, we don't believe in this, and you shouldn't be doing this, and
like Dad's Army.
Yeah, just going around though and what they like is messing around on the field, all having a beer, all getting up close to each other on purpose to piss off the pro-vaxxers and the people who want this control structure in. And they just meet up and talk about truther stuff, organised to then go to councils and the like, and try and cut away at, instead of aiming at the top levels of government who aren't accountable anyway,
chipping away at the bottom.
Chip away at the bottom. And of course the establishment doesn't like it, so Channel 4 were trying to pose it though in a way that seemed like they were trying to make a January the 6th style movement, you know, like last year in the States with the most pathetic march towards, like, I mean, they basically went on a little tour inside the Capitol buildings and walked out. It's not like they really did anything at all, and it was called like an insurrection and stuff, and all this over the top. Well, I think they're building up for something. So I think we're gonna. So what is the situation of the truther community nowadays?
Well,
since Corona or during?
I think so. The last 18 months I've spent, and we call it finding your tribe. So I've been going to protests, and I started protesting mainly because I knew this was a scam, but also my business almost got closed down, and I've been self-employed for almost 30 years, and I wasn't able to get furlough and stuff. So I started getting out there and meeting people like myself, building your tribe, finding your network of people who can, you know, I think it was quite lonely at the beginning. There was a lot of people who were generally terrified in the beginning. Even a lot of the truther movements. Yeah. Is this real? Isn't this real?
Yeah. It
was soon clear. It wasn't.
I had a mask on for 2-3 weeks. I had a mask on for 2-3 weeks. Like, I need to know all the information before I make a judgment on any of this, and I'm just going to do it and just see.
But then all the pieces start to fit together as the time goes by. You know, we're inquisitive as humans. We wanted, and I like the facts and figures, but also I knew that what they were doing was being talked about for such a long time. Let's go back to waking up 2000. So I woke up in a kind of 2006, 2007 properly. Well, not properly. My awakening started, and it took a long. And I went to see David Icke in Wembley Arena, 2011, and it was the first time that I'd been around. I guess there was maybe 5,000 people there. The first time I'd been around awake people who were thinking like me, who had read what I've read, and it was like, oh, great, I'm not going mad.
They were foaming at the mouth, and they were climbing up the sides of the walls like zombies. I take it. Like
no,
they were
hiding
just in the corner, or
just people
up and down
like you and I, old from quite young to really old, and everyone. It was amazing. It was an amazing presentation, and whatever you say about David Icke, and there's lots of people a lot of haters out there. He's a shill, and we've heard that with quite a lot these days. The information he gave or gives, you don't have to believe it, but if something resonates with you, go and research it for yourself.
Yeah.
Go and find out, because many of the things he said is absolutely true. There's a few subjects he stays away from, and that's fine. Shame he didn't stay away from the reptilian one. Maybe he'd have a bit more credibility, but you know that's by the by.
From an American lady, I believe, and
I understand.
Ran with it, and
I understand it though.
I think though it was like the thing that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of the times they kind of merged into like the reptilians being a metaphor, and people tend to take things very literally in this, and it's like it also linked to like the reptilian brain and the simplicity of
absolutely
within humanity anyway, and really just like a metaphor for the base of humanity.
But that was picked on, wasn't it? Every time you hear about David, like the queen's a lizard, the queen's a reptile,
so I
kind of just waters it all down.
I had my own up and down with the old Icke drama, because I loved I saw it as indulging to an extent in David Icke stuff for a long time. You know, they make you think it's like that because, and then it is kind of like that because you're getting all this information or information that you've got to then verify, and then you verify it, and you're like,
oh shit.
Now,
well, I found
I talked with a guy, a lovely couple. I mean, I was still working in hotels beginning of last year when the coronavirus pandemic started. So I've gone full time into the writing and journalism since then, mainly because there was no way I could keep a job and travel around and do stuff. And so I'm throwing myself fully into this now. I was talking to a guy and a lady who was staying at the hotel I was working at. They said to me, oh yeah, and all the David Icke stuff and things, And I said, they're really, really lovely pair. A pair of ex-coppers, but I've had some conversations where they saw the inside of what was really going on in the force, and they were really, really like, they had their mind open up. And I asked them what they thought Ike believed in, and they hadn't a clue, of course. But they were very nice people, and they were very open to the fact of exploring this. And I said, because, you know, what you find is that 99.9% of what Ike says you will agree with, and you'll find evidence of it being true.
Yeah.
And now, there's not many people around where 99.9% of what you can look at is true. Then most of the people, it's like...
It's subjective.
It's objective opinion, or it's like 50-50, but... He puts in a lot of research. He's done a lot of time on this, and there is, and he's right completely. There is a small group of families who have ruled things for a while, and like with the Rockefellers and stuff, where you've got
J.P. Morgans and
they
the Rothschilds.
Yeah. I mean, the Rockefellers in particular, they didn't necessarily become very rich because they had such a methodical approach and a thirst for getting as much money, and then the ability at the time to get around regulation, bullying and harassing people and doing all of that, and they made all their money from that, so they made their name from that too, and that came back
lobbying
them. Eventually lobbying, but for the first part of it, like the first 50 years of the Rockefeller fortune and the Standard Oil, what you see is a guy who's like, he's making shitloads of money, doing loads of type of thing, and can't see at all what he's doing. And then it gets shown to him what he's doing. He's like, I've got to change this and give everything away as quickly as possible. But by that point, he's done all of the damage. He's made all of this money. He's making so much money that he can't give it away.
Was he the one that coined the fossil fuels? The word fossil fuels.
Very possibly, but I don't know. I'd have to.
To make it sound like it's rare and it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because that was one of the things that Rockefeller was most concerned about, was the fact that oil was so around, there was so much oil around, and there were so many people refining it, that basically he had to buy up all the refineries and then try and bring up the prices again to be a little bit better, even though he was his claim to fame was reducing prices of kerosene down for normal kerosene lanterns by like 4 times or something, but that was just going to happen due to the fact that oil was becoming big and was being refined in big, so it wasn't him who did it, he just owned all the oil companies at the time, so it just happened to be him who owned everything. But they were a bunch of bastards, and what they went on to fund with the idea of giving money away is all of this infrastructure, all of these different people. They become so big and so rich that they just become targets, and then they were like, well, we've got to give our money away, but we don't want to give our money away without having a catch, and that catch has to be gaining more power. So where they had created these companies to be big and overpowered,
these councils,
they would then do the same with their reach, their political reach. Like within a certain amount of time, they would suddenly go into politics. I think it was the son of J.D. Rockefeller, John Rockefeller Jr., who was the one who married in a senator at the time, you know, and they married into a political, like, a dynasty that was then, like, of course, gives them influence and
massive power,
and was hated by all of the people at the time, and ended up being attacked by Teddy Roosevelt, I think was the first Roosevelt, who took the war against to the Rockefellers and stuff. But all of these guys, even at the time, the people can see they're terrible people, and they're the way they're completely detached from real life and what people are actually going through, and they make people's lives worse. And they say, well, why do you hate me? Well, you just made our lives worse and taking all our money. Yes, but why do you hate me? You know, it's like Colonel Gaddafi in the back of a van saying, "What have I done to you?" And he's being stabbed. There's a point when you ask that question. There's a point when it's too late to ask that question.
What have I done to you personally? They don't realise. They don't see that.
Yeah, they don't see that they have to keep continuously gaining something from any relationship, and that has to either be wealth or power. It's not worth entering into any type of communication with somebody else if you're not going to get wealth and power out of it. And if you're very good at doing that, and very good at systematically doing that, and putting other people into systematically doing that, then you can gain all the wealth and power. So Ike's work has always looked at these people who there's lots of documents
and exposed them, really.
And exposed them, and shown that they're still in charge today. The same families are still in charge charge today. Now, that is the biggest, most scariest truth for all of the people who apparently, whether people want to say he's a shill or not, he's done, and for all of the other bits that you could say about his previous work and stuff.
And what was the biggest secret? What was the biggest secret?
Who knows?
Nobody knows.
Yeah, I have to say that I also I went up and down with stuff. I like I said, I found it indulgence. Then I found it really interesting. Then
I found it made me really
dangerous how other people translated what he said. Some other people I knew, they weren't like taking it in a good way, and they were doing bad things through it. And that wasn't his words. That was their response to finding out it's all a sham.
I think it made me feel small and insignificant.
Yeah, that's what they. I think that's.
I think it just made me feel like, well, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
What is the point? And so. But I think when you start researching, you think, I started going to protests. I was going to fracking protests in the Forest of Dean. And I was just going along on my own. I'm lucky I'm self-employed, so I can get those time off. Just going on my own. I was trying to find something. You know, it was almost like I'm searching out for something. And this is where, over the last 18 months, I've been finding my tribe. And I've met some people I'm going to call friends for life.
Yeah.
Amazing people from all around the country. People like Magnus, aren't they? You either push together or you'll pull apart.
Yeah.
And you meet them and you can feel it. You know, if you feel those energies, if you're in tune with that, you'll know.
I always feel it's like the people who that pulling apart and the magnetism is that thing where you are the same as someone or you're not the same as someone. And as soon as you realize
if you're on a different vibration,
you realize it's actually you've got to pull towards you, and those people have usually got to push away. It's like it's a repel. They repel people because they don't want to have to talk about the things that they're too scared to talk about.
But when you meet someone on the same vibration, and I find many of the people in the truth movements who are genuinely awake, because there's a lot of woke, but we talked about this that there has to be more people in our movement and us to gain some balance. Because I think I heard this thing where there's 30% of us that are awake. 40% have had the jabs, but are questioning the narrative. And you've got 30% who are fast asleep. At the moment, that 40% who've had the jabs, who are questioning, they're still siding with the fully asleep because they think that's the right thing to do. So I think it's important for us, the 30% that are awake, to start bringing them over to us. We need to redress that balance. We need to say those people who've had the third, or were told, I'm not having this third jab, they need to come to us now and they need to learn what. There's a reason why they asked that question. They need to go and find out why now.
You're right. Your view, I think, is a lot more optimistic, or maybe bundling two separate groups of open-minded or open up, because I think it's less than 10% is a real open. I'm ready to do something. And it's like 20% is, okay, I'm open, but I don't know what to do. And then the other ones are
So is that up to us to tell them?
Yes, but they not to expect them to respond like we do to it.
But each one of us, you said there's 10%. If each one of us woke one person up.
No,
and this is where we got to keep this.
This is how countries rise and fall, is by the idea of if only we can all make people do things, we're just not going to happen. But
how many people do you think you've woken up?
But I think a much more reasonable figure is 5%. I think that it'll only take between 3 to 5% of people really acting to drive on the rest of them. I don't think it'll take the 10%. I think we always aim at the 10%. I don't know how many people personally I've woken up. I don't even know that I don't like look at it through that prism either, because I have to just constantly keep going, because this is not me necessarily waking people up. This is me continuing the journey of waking up. So continuing the journey when you wake up and saying, okay, now I understand that it's all an act. Now I want to know how they write the stage play, and who writes that stage play, and who are the people who employ those people, and who are the people who employ those people. That's what I want to get into. Yeah. So I hope that
it's hard though, isn't it? We talk about rabbit holes in the truth community, don't we, so often? And it is, you end up, sometimes you get a little bit of information, you start going deep into it, and then you hit a brick wall, nothing. Yeah. And sometimes it's so frustrating. I found though, it's kind of when you know, right? So we know where this is going. This is going to a new world order. This is going to a one world government, one religion, one world currency. We know that. So all this is just the building blocks for it, and most of it is just distraction. So I think many of these things are just distractions. We got to focus on that. Now, if they want all these massive restrictions on us, as if, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 have said, and the Great Reset have said, then we know what their intentions are. So it's up for us to fight those intentions. Because if there's going to be a new world order anyway, then really we should have some say in it.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm looking. So all of this, much of it is distraction.
I also think it's really important for people to understand. You know why it's easy to investigate and discover things that make people surprised nowadays, and they don't realise, because if you look at it through that paradigm, if you look at it right, things are meant to be normal, then nothing makes sense. If the way people are meant to be treated, it doesn't make any sense. If you think of it through a paradigm that these people are looking to do something bad for you, everything makes sense. And this keeps happening over and over again. So if you work out, okay, then there's a structure, then you're and it's underneath, you're already on the right track, because you're saying, is there something underneath? And that's the only question that needs to be asked. Is there something underneath? Yeah. And a lot of people just need one example of that further. To Indeed. Open up their eyes themselves. So I hope it keeps going. So the Truther movement, what's going on? What are you finding around?
So I've been going to an event called Third Wednesday, and it's arranged by a guy called Dick Dalrymple, James Dalrymple's brother. And it started off at a place in Ledbury.
Oh my God, I've had some experiences in Ledbury.
A pub called The Barn. And it was, so they decided to arrange for truthers to meet on a Wednesday evening. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's happening right throughout sort of Gloucestershire, down into Bristol. And there's one landlord that is going to open one in Cardiff shortly as part of this. So it's a closed event. Well, kind of closed event. It's mainly just advertised for truthers. And it's a great way to network. It's about finding your tribe and finding like-minded people. I've had quite a lot of people contact me on Twitter, and I live up in the valleys. All my friends and family are asleep. I don't know what to do. So I've directed them towards Stand in the Parks. None of them realised they were Stand in the Park, and 3 of them that have contacted me all met on the one Sunday at Stand in the Park, and they were so pleased because they found people like them.
Yeah,
and it's
refreshing, isn't it?
It really is. It's such a lovely feeling. And then, so these Third Wednesdays happen every third Wednesday of the month, and I think there's probably a dozen odd places. So if you follow Dick Dalrymple, or if you don't, follow him, and he'll give you all the details. But it's a really good way of networking with like-minded people, and there's lots of interesting people. Doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got people who are high up in NHS.
Everybody sees what's going on.
They're scientists, and there's people from all walks of life. And there's another pub we meet first Monday. This is a new little one that's going, and which is it's at the Red Line in Cradley, which is you probably know Cradley, between Ledbury and Worcester. And the landlord and landlady are very much awake. And they had a mate, so Darren Hopkins, who we talked about earlier, who is just a truth warrior. He visits all these town centres, giving out the light paper. He needed funding for a tour he wanted to do, so he held a little benefit gig at this pub in this Red Line at Cradley, and he had a band called Jam for Freedom. I don't know if you've come across them. Amazing story. So Campbell is a drummer and a musician, and during lockdown, he was kind of stuck. He didn't know what to do, so he went and started playing drums in Hyde Park. And a few other people started to come and jam with him.
Nice.
They opened up a crowdfunder. A little video of theirs went viral and got spotted by Eric Clapton,
nice.
who donated them £1,000.
Good.
They eventually got to meet him, and he loaned them their toll bus for a year, so they could go and do these gigs. And so they go around jamming for freedom, and it's amazing. Loads of truthers come along. Again, it's another way of networking. The story's amazing. There's factions all around the world now for Jam for Freedom. But I was really lucky enough to meet him a few weeks ago at this benefit gig for Darren. And of course, Darren Nesbitt, who did the "We Are the 99% song towards Christmas. Do you hear that?
No, I didn't.
He I think he got number 9 on Amazon. It was kind of an song, and there was lots of they were there for this gig, and it is fantastic. And I think getting out there and meeting people is so important. Being at home, don't feel alone. Go out there, go and meet people. Go and just do one thing every day that scares you. Keeps coming up tonight, doesn't it? But put yourself out of your comfort zone. Go and meet your people. And I have, like you, I've had anxieties, and where I feel a little bit socially awkward, especially being awake around.
It only takes 5 minutes to stop being socially awkward. It only takes the initial 5 minutes of realizing that
it's cool.
Social isn't so bad.
I know.
Etc. It only takes a little bit of time to get over that moment, but that moment is a hard moment for a lot of people, because a lot of people, of course, are trained and conditioned not to do anything but stay at home, and not do anything but stay on their computers and their phones and etc.
I've met some amazing people. Matthew Wanks, he's on Twitter, but Matthew Blackman. Matt's just got, and I won't tell you his story because that's his personal story, but he's amazing, and he got to the age of 51. Nobody knows, but he did, and he is really my best mate. And I've only met him 18 months ago. We met through Twitter. There was a protest, the first protest that we went to together. It was in Birmingham quite early on, and so we'd never met. And I said, "Do you want to go to this protest in Birmingham?" I'm meeting 2 of the other truthers up there. And he was like, "Oh yeah, okay." So I picked him up from Bristol, not knowing this guy at all. We jumped straight in my car and we went to Birmingham. We had this terrible drive in apocalyptic weather.
Yeah.
And we it was a bit
bonding.
Well, it wasn't. It was for a while. It was a little bit frosty. He wasn't trusting, and I was thinking, "Fuck, what am I doing? Shit." But then, as the day went on, the bonding happened, and we met these other 2, Gary and Paul, up in Birmingham. And it was brilliant, and it really felt like, we really can do something. This is good. Meeting people is the right way forward.
It's not going to be waking people up. Isn't going to be a thing that you can do en masse. Yes, I can write an article that provides people the evidence so that they can help with their argument when they're trying to argue with someone about a very specific
it's critical.
Something. Yeah, that may be critical, but what's really super critical and hypercritical is talking with people in person and having a conversation and taking your opportunities. And I have to admit,
and to not sound like a mentalist. You have to get your script right. You've got to do it. This is what Darren, when he's out in these towns and people asking him questions.
I scared the living shit out of a lady.
Oh shit! Did you? Go on.
I was in I went into I think it was Jojo Mamon's or someplace like that. I wanted to buy some baby stuff for a new kid, and it's all very happy, and it's like, yeah. So I went in and I had the puppy, and she wouldn't get in her little bag. So I had her under my arm, and I was like, I can't touch anything because I got muddy hands. Can you help me? And the woman was like, okay. And they're both masked up and looking pretty serious and stuff. And it was only the other day, and we had watched the CEO of Pfizer speaking the just the night before. Me and my housemate who I'm living with at the moment, he said the CEO of Pfizer was saying, look, the vaccines are not effective, if effective at all, something along those lines, and that it's got a bad safety profile. And so I thought I could tell these other sides of the fence. I could tell they were a little bit about it. I could tell they also weren't the type to ask questions or anything. So I was just talking to them. Really, I was so super polite. I was just like I'm super polite. I've always been. That's why I worked in hotels so well, and that's why they like me in there, because I'm super polite with.
And you can engage with people.
Yeah, I can engage with people.
But you can.
I could if I wanted. No.
But I think when you're in that environment, you've got people of all shapes, sizes.
No, but
status.
I like there's 3 ways that I misheard you. I heard engage, and I think that's part of it. I can look at someone in the eyes. I can gaze at them.
So it's windows of the soul.
And talk to them properly, and you can find out so much information once you connect with someone.
Absolutely.
It's critical that we spend our time talking with other people. When I said to this lady, I said to tell, and I was very matter of fact and confident about it, so that I said, don't worry, whole thing will be over soon. It'll be nice when we can just, talk and chat, and we don't have to have all these masks in the way and stuff, so I can see your smiling face. And I said, I said to CEO of Pfizer said this the other day. When I finished saying what he had said, the lady's face turned completely white and panicked, like, what? He said, got a bad safety profile. And she looked at the other woman, like, oh my God, like, really panicked. And the other woman was like, raised her hand slightly to say, calm down, it's okay. People on that side have had zero information given to them. They have no information. And if you say just a little thing with enough confidence, a little bit of truth with enough confidence, which you should have because it is true.
It's true, yeah.
And that if you say things as you feel them and as they appear to you, you find that it breaks through the barrier.
So my friend Lynn, she's amazing. She's been a massive warrior in this, as well in this truth movement, and she's ballsy. She writes slogans on her car like "Take off your masks, the government is lying to you" and stuff. So we've gone to the protest and writes them in chalk paints on her windows. And she's got a thing where she likes to go to the shopping centre with a friend and start up conversations. And people are naturally in a cafe they'll listen to you and they'll overhear you. And so these quite loud conversations, and it's just those little things just to spark that interest, and just to get them get people thinking is critical.
It's exactly what's needed. But to understand the other side, you also come across these overheard conversations. I overheard a conversation the other day which did not fill me with confidence. It's a woman, and it was the same day as I was coming back from this baby shop, and so it's I'm feeling pretty happy since the New Year's turned. We started to see the tables turn. We start to see the agenda turn. We start to see them being exposed.
Little retreat,
and I think it's going to be like full horn running eventually. That little retreat is going to get faster and faster until the new event starts, which will probably be a financial crisis of some type. It's levels we've never seen before. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
Central bank digital currency.
I got a friend, a builder up in York, one of the Truth Movement I've met, and he only accepts payment in gold. and that's how he's being paid.
Yeah,
because he said there's going to be a massive financial crash.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can go into all sorts of stuff, but
the conversation just before we get on to that, the conversation I heard when I was walking by, a lady talking about how she just got brought her kids in to be boosted, and then she's got these 4 children. And one of them's in a pram, and the other ones, none of them were over 6 years old.
Oh, it just breaks my heart.
And I know, and she said it like, again, I had to do it again, complaining about it. And yeah, okay, I could take a little bit of good thought in the positivity from the fact that she's maybe questioning things a little bit now in the stage where she can mentally question. But she's been putting her kids through a risk every time they have a jab. Every time it's a risk. Now, it may be, it appears by the data that it's than all other vaccines combined
in history.
Yeah. So that has got to be a real worry for people, but it's not known, so it's not a worry for people. So they talk about it so matter of fact. I'm hearing it, and it's literally filling me up with sadness as I hear it. And I want to say something in those situations. I'm someone who says things to people. That's always how I've been. I want to say something, but it's just nothing I can say to that person.
Go and check out the yellow card scheme. Go into the reporting scheme. That's what I've said to him. Go and look at it's a government website. Go and have a look at the amount of people who've had adverse reactions to any of these jabs that they've been given, and it's huge. And it's why anyone would send their kid, put that much risk. I mean, they can't even give you paracetamols in school,
Yeah,
and yet it's okay to jab them with something.
That is crazy. That is craziness. Because once upon a time, it's like I said to you earlier, I suffered from a thyroid disease, which was always left me with migraines, and not being able to be given anything in school was a pain in my ass. Yet they would happily jab me, and they would have jabbed me back in the day with the MMR vaccine as well if they had managed to have the opportunity to. But my mum fought them off like a trooper. Now I think she's fully vaxxed and boosted. I'm not quite sure. Give me 1 second.
I was really great. I had a great moment a few weeks ago. I was at my mum's house. My mum's 78. My sister, my younger sister, and her daughter, and her partner, and my daughter were all there chatting, and we're all unvaxxed.
Yeah.
It made me so happy, honestly. If like my inner circle, my closest people to me, and this is not from my influence, we've all been very much awake, quite a spiritual family, and just to be in that, just that kind of, I'm really proud of you lot.
Yeah, that is very nice, and it's very rare as well, because it's just not something we're seeing at the moment.
My mum is 78. She's never been vaxxed in her life. Her mum was an anti-vaxxer. So when my mum was born in 1943.
I thought my mum would hold off for this, but I think.
But the fear. Does she watch a lot of TV? Your mum?
I'm not quite sure because I haven't. Me and my mum have a complicated relationship, so everybody has a complicated relationship with their family in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I find it hard to think that they wouldn't have gone through the whole process. And when I speak to them, it seemed like that. I mean, the thing is that you can fight your battles in all sorts of ways, but sometimes the losing battles are right on your doorstep, and that's what really hurts the most.
They are the most painful.
And sometimes there's just no fight against them. You already know what the outcome's going to be, and at the beginning of this, I already knew the people who were going to be going along. And the problem is working out at the start. I realised how worried I was at the start to it all. I mean, when it really first started off, I was well aware what was going on before most people were, because I was watching it very carefully from very early on.
Yeah.
Just due to the work, I can
remember putting a tweet on just very early on and saying, "Welcome to the New World Order."
Well, at first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I said, right, I'm going to have to...
we've read about Gates for years, though.
Yeah. I know, but I always feel like that. And I know it's a bit of it's a way to constantly get treated like an idiot. But I gave him a couple of weeks. I gave him about 3 weeks probably at most to convince me that this was an actual virus. And he certainly did not convince me it was an actual a virus that was as bad as they say, because I certainly did believe that all the evidence very early on was pointing at a lab leak from Wuhan. Even more so that it was somehow there could have been a connection with the military games that went on in Wuhan just before the leaks, but definitely went on in Wuhan.
Event 201 was it called as well?
Well, no, I there was an actual military Olympic type game.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
But then the event tour was already researching that.
Well, I think I've been following you for a few years, so I think I've been following some of that stuff you put out.
When you see them simulating the thing and doing, they've got the same profile all over. That this was.
It was just a rehearsal, wasn't it?
And made Well, my next article will show the real rehearsal.
And a lot of those events, a lot of those they're so highly filmed, every bit. It's like a stage show, and they'll use that filming for years to come as a news report, a more relevant news report. So they'll film this during this time. They'll have loads of different scenarios going on, and they'll film it, and it'll be used in the news. It's quite an interesting. It's how they use these things as.
Well, I think they
to distract everyone's attention again.
I think that what they're getting used to doing, or what they're trying to do, is get us used to seeing them doing this thing out in the open.
Yeah.
And being like, we're doing it because it's for your safety. Look, we can show you. And then they give you the worst fear porn around. And that's our future. That's stakeholder capitalism.
Isn't it nice when you just laugh at it though?
Yeah, I know. For us, it's nice. It always comes round to the point where I feel this terrible like sadness for all of these other people. She's trying to eat every dusty thing. My puppy is playing up at the moment. She's just trying to eat hair off the floor over there, and now I don't know what she's trying to eat, but whatever it is, it's naughty girl moment. Yeah, I always feel a little bit of sadness for the fact that we can laugh. That we can laugh,
Yeah.
and other people have no idea.
It's amazing that it only affects you if you believe it's real.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to affect any. I mean, a lot of people have had this bad flu a few months before the COVID hit. In the Christmas time, I think it was 2020. Oh God, 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
I had an extremely bad flu.
Yeah.
I was really poorly.
Yeah.
I couldn't move off the sofa.
I just after I first learned about this,
I lost my taste.
I was sure.
And so I straight away I'm like, well, that's what I had. I had that, and I was confident, and so it was pretty bad, and so you can understand people with comorbidities, it dragging them away or making them really poorly. I think things like pneumonia used to be called the old man's friend.
You focus in on them. You focus in on the people who are most vulnerable.
Absolutely. And they right at the beginning, the government making 27,000. Wanted the NHS to make 27,000 beds free. Mm-hmm. So they kicked sick and ill people out of hospitals into care homes and stuff.
Orders going
and we can talk about
war crimes that you can imagine.
Midazolam. We can talk about all this stuff, but we've heard it time and time again. Nothing seems to be getting done about it, or does it? Do you think times are changing?
What? The times are changing. I think they're going towards population reduction at full steam. So
absolutely. I always say about the Georgia Guidestones. Can you remember that? Remember the first time I saw that? I was like, shit.
Well, I think that's probably the most accurate figure that I've heard around from past humanist speakers. And this is basically this idea comes from a wheel of humanism, which is also slightly linked with Crowleyism. And it's the idea. It's all
that was a massive rabbit hole I went down.
The Malthusian idea as well of the fact there's too much population, so there won't be enough resources. So you have to reduce the population for the resources to make sense. You have to keep doing that constantly, but reduce the population constantly over and over again. That shouldn't apply nowadays because we've got different ways of farming and different ways of doing stuff, but they still act as though that's true when they put forward their principles. I don't see anything but them looking for that 671 million or something, is it, that they say is the figure on the Georgia Guidestone? Something like that.
500 million.
Okay.
In perpetual balance with nature, I think the inscription says. But it says a lot. I mean, why was it built, and who was it built by? Well, it's obvious, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's obvious.
And this is the thing, they're saying a lot of the quiet bits out loud too often, and they're putting them in stones and statues and sticking them up around the place. I think they feel like they're achieving because they know what their agenda looks like at the end, or at least some people.
It's like a god complex, isn't it?
Yeah, because a lot of it is so not true. They do not know what they're doing, and what they discover is their plans fall apart and they can never achieve them in time. And they end up, everything falls apart in front of them, and they say, well, how did this happen? But these people, they always...
I think this year is all going to be about exposure. I think a lot of things are going to... That we talk about dark and light. I think the light's going to start shining on these dark places, and a lot of people are going to really struggle. And I think a lot of people, especially the ones who've been triple jabbed, some of them quadruple jabbed shortly. That's those people. I think one of my friends actually from school, he had a fourth jab, but he's been poorly. He's been really poorly.
It's just each one of these jabs is a risk. It's not like it's a risk combined. It's each one of these.
Do you see that story about that?
Each time.
The French guy who couldn't claim his life insurance. The family couldn't claim his life insurance because it was classed as an act of suicide because he died from a vaccine. This was just last week.
That's brilliant.
And so the insurance companies.
Really, that's a punchline.
I suppose so. Yeah.
The punchline of COVID.
The punchline of COVID. I think one of the worst things they did, this government, was to convince kids that they might kill their grandparents. Yeah. I thought that was horrific.
That was real psychological warfare.
That's they talk about mind control. That they put kids in that state of fear. They become sort of easy targets.
Well, I don't understand what happens. What happens between the point of people who go into what happens to them. I'm not talking about the kids and stuff. I'm talking about the people who work in social services. What ends up actually happening to them that makes them lose complete touch with reality? Because surely there should be many social workers and social people working in social services and high up in social care who are like, no, that's obviously the wrong thing to do. That'll do a terrible damage to children. What are you doing? There should obviously be loads. But then I've seen it over and over again. Social services in the UK never were in touch
part
with
of the system, aren't they?
They are part of a really dirty system.
Go back to the Savile case, coming up to 10 years ago now, when that got outed, and you had the Elm Guest House, and you had Bruneston, and the one in North Belfast. I can't remember the name of that one actually, but there was all these places where kids were in these children's homes were drafted in to be enter parties with paedophiles, and with big names on lists.
Yeah.
And those, it was just horrific. And these kids, there's nobody to look out for them. They're nobodies. And social services.
History is that they see kids as completely and utterly. They don't see the fact that they're going to grow up to be adults.
No, exactly, and they take them off their parents so quickly as well, and they're gone.
Yeah. Well, the numbers on people who are taken into social care and other things every year, and kids who go missing, is just beyond understanding in the UK.
Oh,
it's
you can go down I went down that. We talked about Crowley earlier. We mentioned Crowley briefly earlier. That was a massive one. I went into that quite deeply because Crowley visited Newport at one point. Yeah, so Aleister Crowley, he was the most famous occultist, I suppose, ever known. The Beast 666, he was nicknamed. He was
I think he gave himself a lot of those nicknames.
Wow, he was a propagandist as well, isn't he? He was
fantastic at branding if you're the devil.
Absolutely. And so he actually visited Newport to Tredegar House. Yeah. And at the time it was Evan Morgan was the lord there at the time, and he was a famous occultist himself, but in real dark magic. And he had a room within Tredegar House called the Magic Room, and you didn't know it was a room. All it was a key, a single Yale lock. That's it, and it was one of these panels and it was a special black magic room. And Crowley went there, and the black magic that he was conjuring up made Crowley say, "You're a fucking madman," and leave.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to conjure back his dead sister, who he had an incessant relationship with.
Oh God, these guys, they're just these layers upon layers upon layers.
It's crazy,
guys,
and
they can't stop themselves.
They can't stop themselves. And he was, and the
I don't even want to know how his sister actually died.
Well, actually, she was. She actually got away from him. She got to London, and when she died, before she died, she said, "Never. I want my body buried in London. Do not take it back to the ancestral home." But he overrode that, and he got her back to the church, which is still there, and the crypt for these Morgans is there. And he was found that he was doing a black magic ceremony at her graveside because he got her body brought back to Wales, even though she didn't want to, and tried to revive her. And it was a famous story about it, actually. And but in 2007, I never realised at the time the significance of this, because I didn't really know much about Aleister Crowley, but I was working for a TV company at the time. Mm-hmm. Can you remember Most Haunted?
Yeah.
So I was working for Antics Productions, which made Most Haunted. And we went to Sicily. Mm-hmm. I had a funny story, actually, about being searched at airports and stuff. I got to Sicily airport, and my bag was the first off the carousel. Best time. It's such a nice feeling, isn't it? Yes. until the drugs dog sat next to it. I was like, oh, fuck. I knew I didn't have anything on me. I didn't. I was just... But so these Italian police took me into the back room and they were saying to me, cannabis? I was like, no, I got nothing on me. And they stripped me down to my boxer shorts.
Those Italians know how to romance a man.
Don't they ever?
Did they play anything nice in the background?
Well, I'm like, fuck. And I'm with all this production crew. They're all out there waiting. And fuck. And then the one guy come in and snapped some rubber gloves on. I'm thinking, oh no, I probably should have reached up my ass and grabbed the shit and threw it at him.
Yeah, the old autistic way.
And but no, luckily he was just searching through my wash bag.
Yeah,
and they didn't find anything and let me go. But it was one of those heart-stopping moments. What if I left a little blim in my pocket?
Oh man, and they do like to. They love it as soon as they've got a catch. If they've got a catch, however small it is.
Exactly. And then so we did 3 days of a ghost hunting with Paul O'Grady and friends. Anyway, we went to the Abbey of Thelema, which was where Crowley set up his church.
Oh God, yeah.
And he was chased out of Italy eventually.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, but yeah, he was an interesting character, and a lot of the Ordo Templis Orientis, which is his cult. This is what many of the British and American celebrities follow, in a big way. The Peaches Geldof thing, where can you remember that when she showed a tattoo of OTO? Can you remember? And about 5 days later, she's committed suicide. It is the celebrity cult part of if you believe in those things. But
well, I think he made it into that, and I think
all the biggest pop stars, Led Zeppelin, and
he was very good.
The Beatles with. Crowley was on the Beatles Sgt. Pepper's album.
I never know how far that meant. I think they were like listing the most influential people in history, but they've had some deep dark connections because of the scene they were in at the time as well. So I mean, you see enough pictures of them with the likes of Jimmy Savile, and you just
when they're in the trance, because he was a master hypnotist. Jimmy Savile.
Oh, I listen. One of the oh my God. This documentary still blows my mind. Is that it's made by two guys, I think, just two guys, a girl and a guy, who are they've done a fantastic job, because the idea that when people said Jimmy Savile was a wizard and stuff, I was like, yeah, whatever, I knew all of the stuff he did, I knew what he acted like, but then when you actually break down the evidence, it's amazing.
Unreal, isn't it?
And it was these guys who did I think it was called like Jimmy Savile's documentary, or was Jimmy
I think I remember. He was really good though, wasn't it?
Really good. And it makes a lot of sense. Like he used tools like jingle jangle, jingle jangle, jingle jangle. You'd say things 3 times.
His wand, his cigar.
He would actually have. There were like things like when he was down in the mines, when he was a miner.
He used to practice that black magic down there.
Yeah, and he used to go down. They said he was the cleanest person to ever come out of the mines.
Yeah.
So it's like he'd never be dirty, and he'd study his black magic down in the mines, in the coal mines. And they all called him Creepy Jimmy and stuff like that, because he was like they all thought he was like possessed.
He was even questioned in the Yorkshire Ripper murders.
Yeah, and it's not a surprise because he had links. And,
he was just and then of course Broadmoor later on. He had the keys to Broadmoor.
I see a lot of similarity between what Jimmy Savile did and what Jeffrey Epstein did.
I agreed. It's
really the links are all there, but in just slightly different like sort of social sets.
But only fine though. So we had the child sex abuse scandal in Parliament with all the VIP paedophiles. That was brought up by Tom Watson originally in the House of Parliament.
Very controlled.
Very interesting that wasn't it? And David
Tom
Cameron
Watson
with his confused face.
The most,
Labour friends of Israel. Let's not go there.
But there's a lot of things Tom Watson does, which he was the one who told Blair to stand down. He's the one who tells people tells them what the people upstairs want them to do. Yeah. So he's an interesting one, Tom Watson. He is,
but sort of out in that, and then sort of the whole scandal going through, and then the main witness, the Nick guy who was naming all these people, all of a sudden
purposely put up there,
the nice stooge, the patsy, and so Pizzagate followed exactly the same rhythm.
They parallel these events,
and absolutely, and that's hello, and it's interesting. They do follow a formula, and when you start seeing that formula, you realise it's just they use again. I think David Icke would say the Hegelian dialect, which is problem, reaction, solution. You know, and I think that they use that time and time again. And when you see it, you think, oh, of course, you know, it's just them following an instruction manual.
Yeah. So Wayne.
Yes.
Sir, what's your next move then to get out of this stuff? You've got a little plan going, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I've bought myself a 45-foot canal barge to live on.
That'd be good.
It's in a bit of a mess at the moment. I've got it out the water for the next 6 months. Going to renovate it inside and out, and then hopefully live in a little bit of an off-grid life. Apparently, it costs £65 a week to live on a boat.
Really, £65? Is
Yeah.
that some sort of boat tax like Charles I would
Well,
have loved before
actually,
he had his head chopped off for the boat tax?
So I went. I've been doing some research. I do like doing research, and I go to a place called the Barge Inn, which is down in Pewsey, in Wiltshire, and it's a mecca for UFO enthusiasts and crop circle enthusiasts. Yeah. But it runs through the canal. There's loads of people live on their boats, so I was just wandering along and just chatting to them and getting a feel for it. You know, I wanted to see what it was like really. And it works out that for one person to live on a boat, that's your license to be on the water, your food and your gas, because everyone cooks with the gas, is £65 a week per person. So I think that's quite a nice way of living.
Yeah.
You know, I turned 50 a little while ago, a couple of months ago, and I want to retire one day, or at least live an easier life.
Yes.
You know, and I think that might be a way. That might be a good way. I want to learn the guitar, as I said to you. That's another thing. So I'm going to be off grid. No TV. I don't watch TV anyway, but no electronics and stuff. So I just want to strum away in my boat. That doesn't sound right, does it?
yeah. But
Yeah.
That's the way it is, though. Life is a constant struggle, and it's even harder nowadays. And to get off grid is the dream, isn't it?
I'd rather regret it doing it than regret not doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm on a journey, and I got loads of people. I got the new friends I've met, and still old friends that are so enthusiastic about helping me and getting this boat, helping me get my dream, because it is a dream.
Yeah.
To be so totally self-sufficient. I've been through a couple of divorces where I've lost houses, and so I'm like, no, this is going to be mine.
Yeah.
And if I don't like my neighbours, I can just sail off at 4 miles an hour.
That's fantastic. Hey,
go up. And my dream, as I said to you, is I want a load of my truther friends to come on board and sail up to the Brecon Jazz Festival when this is all over.
Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Hey, Monkey?
Yeah, you fancy that?
Like a good idea. He's been to the Brecon Jazz Festival a few times.
Yeah.
So brilliant. Thanks. Listen.
Oh, it's been brilliant chatting to you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's been really easy.
We've covered masses of subjects.
I've forgotten a few.
Quickly, and fantastic. I hope that anybody listening to this finds Wayne on under
at Smith Tarquin.
At Smith Tarquin.
That's me.
Tarquin where his heart really lays. The name where his heart really lays.
Love that.
But yeah, you go find him and follow him. You'll find a lot of what he's doing is trying to bring people together and have a conversation. That's what we need to do. So thank you for joining us on the third of the Fungi Monkey Podcast.